Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you part 2 of a replay between GoOdy and MaNa here on Lost Temple. GoOdy has just been turtling in his base, macroing up a very large army of siege tanks. However, it is going to be countered by zealots, stalkers, and immortals. Those stalkers do have that stalker blink, so they will be able to get into that position very quickly. One zealot now going to go ahead and check out this expansion and quickly find that GoOdy is muling this location pretty well. So GoOdy continues just trying to mine out more and more, and this zealot will be able to deal a significant economic damage towards this location over here. Not much that GoOdy can really do, and as that expansion falls, things should start to fall apart for him. We do see the siege tanks now trying to take down these destructible rocks over here, and now also throwing down a missile turret here. So GoOdy being very aggressive, now trying to push out, and those immortals are simply just going to be able to tear apart that one turret there. We now see that there is an orbital command trying to pull away, perhaps try to set up an expansion down over here, warping in some additional stalkers. We see some STVs now doing some long distance mining, and yeah, this expansion needs to lift up and then try to take this location over here. But really, GoOdy is in a very defensive state. I do not know if he's going to be that successful, as now Hellions running into this base will be able to finish off this one of those probes and perhaps take down that zealot as well. So that zealot already down to 18 hit points, and down it goes. Perhaps down over here, no, too many stalkers, so those Hellions would not be able to do anything about that, as now we see a large stalker and zealot marine army just continuing to fight back and forth. So much splash damage, stalkers blinking up onto that high ground, and now just continuing to push through, but there's too many siege tanks, and wow, MaNa just throwing his whole entire army into the splash damage of those siege tanks, and that was a really bad fight. MaNa now warping in more and more stalkers, trying to finish off the rest of these units. Down goes the last immortal, and now those Hellions and those units will be forced to pull back once again. SCVs now doing their work and trying to take down some of those destructible rocks as well, throwing down some missile turrets, and this is a very aggressive play. Siege tanks over here, no weapons upgrade at all. SCVs should probably try to start repairing some of these units over here. Army-wise, 3,500 versus 2,825. Harvester count 54 compared to 59. And I'm starting to think that MaNa is throwing this game away. He had this, but he just didn't attack with Zealot charge or try to use that Stalker blink nearly as effectively as he could have. Now in come these Hellions here trying to fight back against these Stalkers. The Stalker is finally getting that level 1 weapons upgrade. Siege tanks over here just barely out of sight range, and now we have an expansion by GoOdy over here at the 7 mineral patch island location. More probes being transferred in over here, as we now have more and more immortals being trained. Really, I would like to see GoOdy transition into some sort of Banshee play. Banshees are very strong at dealing with immortals. Immortals just fall apart to the very fast attack of those Banshees. Those Banshees dealing 24 damage every 1.2 seconds, or 20 damage against the hardened shields of these immortals. Back over here, continuing to see this nexus, not training up any additional probes. Really, let's see how this is all going to work out resource wise. We see GoOdy sitting at 1100 versus MaNa's 200, as this army perhaps is going to try to push out. We do see a group of Hellions now going to move out over here. There are a decent amount of stalkers here and here as well. MaNa should most likely try to upgrade these into warp gates once again. However, GoOdy is running off of 3 bases, while MaNa is essentially only running off of 2.5, as these mineral locations is not that well protected. Stalkers now trying to come into here, but really brilliantly done. GoOdy doing a 2-pronged attack using Stalkers and Hellions. So as soon as these Hellions were into this base position, these Stalkers moved out and now are going to get quickly taken down here. Stalkers trying to join in on this fight, however, just getting torn apart there, and now the rest of these probes are going to fall. We do see some Stalkers now trying to move in from this high yield mineral location over. We do have 4 siege tanks. Those siege tanks will be able to start blasting away at these Stalkers. Stalkers need to blink into that 0 range here. MaNa just losing so many units, and now back over here, another main critical fight. Mass immortals just falling apart to more mass siege tanks here. So those immortals just getting taken apart by Hellions as well. Stalkers trying to come in and join in on the fight. We do have an orbital command here, but now this whole entire expansion has been cleaned up. Siege tanks also cleaned up once again, as these units just being placed around. We do have 1 pylon here, and once again warping in another nexus. Mortals standing over here do not have any weapons upgrade still. Siege tanks have 1 weapons upgrade, so that 1 weapon upgrade is going to start to become very significant. Stalkers most likely should be able to fight from here and then shoot into this position. Not exactly sure why he isn't trying to deny this expansion. At least even blinking into this location would be fairly effective as well. Siege tanks just might start splashing and dealing damage to their own SCVs. Stalkers over here, are they going to push? Is what's going to be happening? Not quite sure. MaNa sitting on a 55-25, so able to macro up a very, very large size army. GoOdy, however, does have that level 1 weapons upgrade and armor upgrade. So that armor and weapons upgrade does make this army a little bit more successful. And now 2-1 upgrades. So 2-1 upgrades. So these Hellions now dealing 28 damage against those light units. Siege tanks dealing 60 damage per attack. And now we're going to have Vikings pull along this backside and perhaps try to go into that ground mode and start dealing damage over here. So siege tanks do not see up onto that high ground. Stalkers unable to really do anything there. Stalkers quickly shooting at these Vikings. Vikings now being forced to pull back. And are these Vikings going to try to go into that ground mode, able to start blasting away at some of these units here, and finally pulling back with a very critical blink. Vikings now over here going to get shot down. Siege tanks now quickly being dropped down over here and going to be able to start blasting into this location. There are a couple siege tanks, and a couple of Hellions, and now those Stalkers shooting down that last Viking here. So currently we have MaNa sitting off of 2 bases, trying to saturate this location once again, and now we have mass Hellions moving out. So mass Hellions trying to take down mass Stalkers, not going to be a very, very effective fight there, as those Hellions Infernal Pre-Igniter research not going to really do anything. However, a group of Hellions not going to be running into, perhaps he still does not know about this high yield mineral location, so now only suspecting that there's an expansion here, but now another fight continuing here. We do see more and more Stalkers just getting blown a bit by these siege tanks and these Crucio shock cannons. Hellions now coming in to try to take down more and more of these probes, perhaps going to get some more splash damage in, and now MaNa now down to 59 harvesters. 49 harvesters now as this continues to fight, and now just mass macro coming in from GoOdy. GoOdy able to still continue to run off of 3 bases. We should see MaNa trying to set up a 3rd base as well, but the army size of GoOdy is sitting at 4,500 compared to 5,525, just controlling a lot of this current mid game. Back over here, we see that these rich mineral fields are down to about halfway, so GoOdy needs to take up another expansion at some point, as there are Hellions here and here as well. So currently siege tanks trying to do that slow push out, trying to deal more and more damage, now finally capturing the center Xel'Naga watchtower. There are a lot of siege tanks over here, and the main base has pretty much been, main expansion has pretty much been mined out. These Hellions over here should have seen that warp gate, and now they're going to just run into here, try to take down these probes here. What, a group of 5 Hellions going to be able to quickly take apart that last Hellion here, last Zealot there, and now more of these probes just going to get toasted by these Hellions. So Hellions doing a great job trying to finish off the rest of these probes. Center of the location now, center of the Xel'Naga watchtower, no siege tanks next to it. Perhaps you're trying to move out some of those siege tanks to take claim into this location and try to push back any sort of immortal Colossus push. Army wise, 650 versus 5,900, still no weapons upgrade, so it's going to be a weapon upgrade battle, and I think that GoOdy, just because he has these upgrades, should be able to take this game. There is a couple Colossus, 2 Colossus, a few Immortals, and a lot of Stalkers, but those are all just going to fall apart to the massive number of siege tanks. Are these SCVs trying to mine out of this location as well? They will not be able to, as this place is already pretty saturated, and you can see how saturated this location is. We do see a couple Colossus now moving out. Immortals going to be able to push into this location here, and now siege tanks need to head out, but we see 3 battlecruisers now in the air. So battlecruisers fighting Stalkers, trying to blink underneath these underneath these battlecruisers. However, the siege tanks laying waste to those Stalkers, and that was completely miscalculated. Now that there are just 3 battlecruisers in the air, those 3 battlecruisers will be able to finish this up, and MaNa was not ready for those battlecruisers. And Stalkers do normally counter battlecruisers, but as soon as those Stalkers try to blink within range of these battlecruisers, all of these siege tanks up on this high edge, each of them dealing 60 damage, were able to completely destroy all of those Stalkers. So a good game, well played by GoOdy versus MaNa here on Lost Temple. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between GoOdy and MaNa.